Make it of a marketer. Happy Friday the 13th for those who participate. It is a wonderful day to be here, and we're talking about marketing. We're talking about zombies, and we're bringing it here on a Friday today, Jess. So, first question I got to start you with: are you a Friday the 13th like superstitious type person? Like, does this day mean anything to you in your household?
Well, I am a superstitious person. You just reminded me that it was Friday the 13th. I try to look at it as like the reverse. So like let's turn this into a positive. So actually maybe I'll have even more luck today than I would on a non-Friday the 13th.
And I don't. I brought this up to my wife, Kristen, after I moved up here to Pittsburgh. I don't know if it's everywhere, but in Texas, at least where I grew up, there's no 13th floor on any buildings. So I said, is that a thing like everywhere? And I started seeing it more places. So I think it is a thing in most places, but she wasn't sure. So I don't know. But yeah, there's never a 13th floor. If you're ever wondering if you're on the 14th floor, you're actually on the 13th floor.
I did not know that.
Yep. Look at an elevator next time that you're on one. See if you see 13 anywhere. But to kick us off, as we're going to talk a little bit about, we talked about zombies. There's a real tie-in here. We have a incredible guest joining the program today, John Long. He is SVP, Executive Creative Director at Digitas North America. And John, fresh off writing a book, Zombie Brands: How Brands Lost Their Humanity and How They Can regain their appeal in the age of AI. So, John, that is a conversation we've been having for 4 years on this program. So, we're super excited to have you on today and bring some of this discussion on a happy Friday the 13th.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
So, John, we'll start us off. Question we've been asking everyone to start off season 4, and might be a great segue into what we're going to talk about today. Age of AI. It's all we hear about on LinkedIn, of course. AI, AI,
I've
AI.
never heard of it. What is this AI
What
that
does
you're
it mean? No, sometimes like I see certain AIs and I do wonder if I've heard of it. But what we want to ask you is how are you bringing authenticity on the daily for yourself in an age of AI? What is your go-to? How are you bringing this to your personal life, Digitas? How does it come together to stay authentic in this new realm of this world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think from a creative perspective, that's where I start with everything. I don't use AI. I use AI a lot in the creative process, but not for certain things. Certainly not for idea generation. AI, as you well know, it's good. I think it's useful to think of large language models as like extremely intelligent autocorrect, right? So, in terms of idea generation, and ideas are what make advertising work. Ideas are like what we're all looking for. Big ideas, still highly relevant, still what makes impactful work. AI can't do that. I haven't seen it. If someone wants to prove me wrong, great. What it does do though is it does locate low hanging fruit. So I found it's very useful for like killing group brainstorms, which is selfishly I hate group brainstorms because I find them performative and annoying. They're very good at identifying low-hanging fruit. So it is actually good to see what AI thinks is a good idea because then you can stay away from those things because they've all been done or they're all mashups of things that have been done. As a writer, my background is as a copywriter. It is a superb word finding tool. So it mashes up thesauruses, dictionary, rhyming dictionary, and idiom dictionary, like all in one amazing location. And why is that relevant? Because what makes good headlines is often alliteration, rhymes, puns, taking an idiom and bending it. So if you have an idea, getting to a better headline, it's very helpful for that. Again, you have to have an idea first. And then I think the other thing is when I look at how to use AI, how we use it at Digitas, it is a phenomenal production tool. So things that would take hours and hours to produce now can take minutes, seconds. So it's a remarkable tool for building storyboards to get an idea sold. It's a remarkable tool for mass production. So you have a product and a background, and it can swap those out really easily and mechanically. So I think that's the way I use it. I don't use it, to write stuff for me. I'm a writer. If I feel like if I'm outsourcing that, I'm losing my voice. Um, and I don't think it's like I said, I don't think it's good at idea generation. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I'm thinking about it.
I love this. You're one of the first that we've heard say that it is actually a detractor for idea generation. So I want to know, like, what do you do? What's your anti-AI?
Well, again, it's taking when you ask it for ideas, all it's doing is looking around and I mean it's all built on a mathematical formula, right? So it's like the way it constructs sentences is what are the probabilities of the next word and then the next word and the next word. So really great creative ideas often combine two completely um, disparate things that would never be connected in that way. That have no mathematical relationship that AI couldn't have mashed up. So, no algorithm could have predicted Oppenheimer, what is a 3.5 hour movie about a nuclear physicist in the 30s. There's no algorithm that would have told you that would have made
Yeah.
$1 billion worldwide. None. Sorry. Like, no. So great creativity and craft by definition cannot come from AI. What AI does do very well is execute good creative. I'll give you an example. When I started playing around with ChatGPT, like, I don't know, a year and a half ago, whenever the, you know, I would ask it to write headlines and it was awful, just like laughably bad. But what I've noticed now is if I give it a very tight brief and if I give it the idea and I feed it 5 A+ headlines that I wrote, it can generate 25 B to C headlines that if I edit slightly, I can make an A.
Yep.
But that's still pretty good. That's like a 21 or 22-year-old junior copywriter, very industrious junior copywriter.
Mhm.
And that's how AI really is. To me, they're like very extremely bright 20-year-olds. You have to check their work.
Yeah.
They're not always right. They're extraordinarily industrious. Like you can just keep telling it to do stuff. But you're not gonna get brilliant ideas from a 20-year-old. Um, you might by accident, like I said, if you give it a tight brief, but human judgment, human creativity, again, creative ideas coming from disparate places, you're not gonna get that from AI. I haven't seen it. Maybe I'm wrong. I just haven't seen it.
We do our newsletter actually, and we've been helping. What we do is we get transcripts of our shows and we pump them into ChatGPT and we say, "Hey, formulate it into a 500-word newsletter."
Very good for
It,
that.
and it does the same thing. It's like it feels like a 20-year-old writing, and I'm like,
Yes.
okay, starting point, interesting direction. This isn't where I would have taken it. This is
Yep.
where I would have taken it, and then it becomes me as a journalism major, John. Like I go into an editor mode, and
Yep.
I'm like, okay, like this is bringing back some of my journalism skills a little bit here. So there is some satisfaction, at least a little bit, in that sense. I do want to switch gears on you, though, John, because you brought something up interesting here. As we look through your history, we want to talk a little bit about how you got from A to Z, where you're at right now. So, starting off
Mhm.
as a writer, producer, Warner Brothers Entertainment, like I immediately was like super cool to where you're at right now as SVP at Digitas, and of course, now unleashing your book this week. Take us through your journey as a creative, a marketer, how all this has come together in such an illustrious career that you've had to this point.
Well, like a lot of people in advertising, I think a lot of people get into advertising because they get bored with everything else. They just have restless, curious minds and they just wind up kind of bouncing around. And that's certainly true with me. So I'm a classically trained musician. I have 2 degrees in music composition. And my first job out of grad school, I decided I didn't want to get a PhD, was as a music supervisor for Warner Brothers, music production, music supervision. And then I became the music supervisor at the WB network. And from there, I kind of finagled my way into producing and writing television spots for TV programming. And I did a stint. I also did the same job at ABC. I did a stint at at DreamWorks in feature production, and I was a script analyst at Focus Features. I was like bouncing around a lot. Finally, I married a Texan. We moved to Austin, and that's where I switched to the agency side, and I found my tribe. Like ad agencies was like, oh, this is great. Entertainment marketing is great, but it's a bit like pharma. There's tons of rules around it. You're doing the same thing every time. And ad agencies to me appealed to me because again, I have sort of a restless cure. I get bored easily. And so you're always working on something different. And then I'm originally from the Northeast. I was born in New Jersey. So we worked our way back up like a homing pigeon. I found my way back to the Northeast. And I've been in agencies. I did a stint at Huge, Code and Theory. I was 5 years ECD at Ogilvy, New York. And then after I did the pandemic, I joined The Economist as global head of creative. And then I ran LG North America's in-house agency for a year before coming back to the agency life at Digitas, where I've been for 3 years. So pretty winding road, but always interesting.
Interesting, Jess. So this is something that I think we talk about a lot. Jess and I both are of the creative mindset. I feel like
Yeah.
we both are the same type that if we aren't creating things, we can get a little bored at times. So like super interesting because that is something, John, for our listeners, it almost just needs to be said, in my opinion. Because like sometimes I feel like marketers, they almost feel bad for feeling that way. Like, oh, I should be happy that I'm hitting my KPIs. I should be happy that we got our cost per lead down. But there's a lot of creatives in the room and they want that type of energy. So it's interesting to hear how you take it from a TV production realm, which a lot of people historically would enter marketing through, and then now work it into the agency world. So that is actually how I want to segue into this. So Super Bowl. I threw this question in here because it's still a little relevant. I know we're almost a week out, but curious your thoughts. Just looking for a branding perspective, what you saw during the Super Bowl in terms of ads, anything that stuck out, and Justin and I, we have a bone to pick with some of these companies sometimes. $8 million for 30 seconds, and you're not going to bring it. Like, so we felt like there was a lot that was stale at times this year. So I was curious what your thoughts are, seeing this from a large brand perspective.
Andy, I had the exact same thought on the Skechers spot. Um, I thought the exact same thing. You're spending $8 million and you have Sofia Vergara is like this incredibly funny, tremendously talented personality who can do any number of things, and you have her putting shoes on in a room. I don't know. That seemed like it does seem like a place you want to kind of go for it.
Mhm.
I'm an unabashed Digitas homer, so I'm going to say I loved nerds. It was a friendly. Everybody's going for like big special effects and chowdy, and to me, that spot hit the right note emotionally about just feeling good and egalitarianism and friends. Um, Outside of that, I thought the um, the Redfin ad, "Won't You Be My Neighbor,"
Yeah.
Lady Gaga was really effective. I was surprised it was only 12th on the USA Today ad meter
Yeah.
because that was the one that really stopped me, you know? Sometimes it's happenstance. You hit a number of cultural trends, and she did a phenomenal job with that song. She managed to sound both like plaintive and hopeful. Um, but yeah, at a time when we're seeing everybody's craving more connection, especially with your own neighbors. I think I saw a stat in the case study. It's like 70% of people can't name more than like one or two neighbors in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
So there's a craving for it, and then we're seeing all around the country neighbors behaving in really heroic ways. So I love that. I don't know why the Duncan spot got kind of I thought it was hilarious. Maybe it's because I'm a Gen Xer, so this like mashup of 80s sitcoms I found like I'll admit that was like probably targeting me.
Yeah.
Um, and then I thought the TurboTax ad was really good. I think those were to me the stand. The tight end, of course, Novartis. I think probably is the consensus winner. I haven't seen anyone dislike that spot, so I think those are the ones that came to mind.
It's funny that you bring up the Skechers ad because we didn't talk about this in our episode debrief, but that did stand out to me because it seemed like they used AI or something with her getting her foot in the shoe. It did not seem natural.
But my
Like,
first thought was, did someone make a mistake? Like, was this like it felt like a regular spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's like, did this run in the wrong slot? Like, did Skechers send them the wrong ad? Like, they sent them like the retail like ad for fall sale, and they're running the. It's very weird, very strange. Oh well.
So let's talk about John. Now we're talking about zombie brands, unzombieing. That's a big piece of your book. So like for me, like I'm a huge follower. My brands, it comes up probably, Jess, would you say like over under 100 times I've mentioned Duolingo on this show?
Mhm.
Probably over by this point.
Liquid Death and Duolingo
Duolingo. Yeah.
come up
Yeah,
almost
there
every
you go.
episode.
Those are my favorites, but the creative Zaria, who designed the Duolingo strategy, she's now a DoorDash. So when I saw DoorDash, what they did with 50 Cent this year, I was like, they've gone full Duolingo, and that is how you use a celebrity, because there's brands that just throw celebrity in. There's
Yeah.
brands that hit a celebrity when they're hot and they relate it to a social issue. Got me thinking now, let's dive into your book, and you're talking about how brands have become zombified. Like, if you can give us maybe some spoilers, a little bit of like what this is about, what you're getting at, and some of the work and tales that you've put in here to help brands get out of kind of that checking the box strategy, if you will.
Yeah, sure. Uh, the zombie metaphor is meant to be a little provocative, right? Meant to get attention. It's good marketing. But there's truth to it, because the thing about zombies is they're really not quite human. They appear human, but they're not. They have no soul. They sort of wander around. They all kind of look alike. Um, they all sound alike. They don't modulate their voice. They all have the same kind of grown, weird voice. Um, they stagger around looking for brains to eat, right? They stagger around endlessly. They're kind of unstoppable. And when I look at how brands behave and how they look today, a lot of that holds. A lot of brands sound exactly the same. They use exactly the same phrases and
Give me
words.
your conversions. Give me your demo requests.
Buy
Yeah.
now, learn
Yeah.
more. They use a lot of the same mimetic phrases. They look alike. They're using the same stock photography. They're using the same web-friendly fonts. They have the same tone of voice brand guidelines: optimistic, friendly, helpful. Um, and they kind of maniacally follow you around. So you have a conversation about tires, or you do a Google search on tires, and then you're getting bombarded for like these zombies asking you to buy now. So that's kind of the metaphor. And what I wanted to do was kind of deconstruct how this happened, how we went from crafting these incredibly artful, seductive, well-designed communications to sort of this disposable crap that you see in your feed. I thought that was an interesting story to tell. I did not want the book, though, to be just a screed and a litany of complaints. What good is that?
Mhm.
So the first half of the book lays out the behavior of zombie brands. The second half of the book, though, is how to unzombify your brand. How do you give a brand a unique brand voice? How do you give a brand a distinctive look and feel and carry that through? What are the media channels that are particularly conducive to sort of keeping the zombies away? It's those kinds of things that I think the second half of the book addresses, and hopefully will be of use to marketers. If I can get a few people to think a little differently about the importance of brand and the function of some of these channels, then the book will have done its job.
Uh, yes, agree. Because again, we were just talking about the Super Bowl, and as someone that really focuses on unlocking others' creativity or helping them unlock, I was so upset to see it fall so flat with the Super Bowl and just like seeing these marketers playing it so safe and not taking those creative risks. I'm really curious. Well, one, just side note, just to get a little bit more about you out there. Are you a zombie? Are you a zombie attack planner? Or like on an or like I'm thinking Walking Dead here. I think there are people that really think
Survi-
a zombie
survivalist.
yeah, survivalist.
Well,
Brand
Okay, thank you.
no,
survivalist.
no, the
Yes.
funny thing, yeah, no. The funny thing is I'm not really even a fan of zombie movies.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite genre. What was the show that what was the series that everyone was absolutely crazy about?
The Walking
Walking
Dead.
Dead.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was never. I just find. There was one zombie World War Z I really liked,
Yeah.
and I actually took inspiration from the World War Z art and 28 Days After.
Thought so. Yeah. I was like, that looks like
Yeah.
28 days later. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, that's good. That was sort of the inspiration. I worked with a brilliantly talented designer, and that was the inspiration. But no, I'm not a fan of zombie movies per se, and it just seemed to fit the bill. That just kept sticking in my head of, yeah, this sort of monster, this sort of soulless monster that follows you around.
So my second question. So yes, thank you for sharing a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
But then how do you think the marketers or us as a creative community, how did we get here to this place now where we're
Yeah.
walking around like zombies?
Yeah. I think I identify in the book, there are four really big trends or technologies that led us to this place. One is the internet, which just destroyed mass culture, destroyed broadcast, destroyed newspapers and print, which were really important channels for advertising. But yeah, it destroyed broadcast media, mass media, which was a problem because that's what advertising was built on for the better part of 100 years. Digital media, secondarily. So digital media allows you, think about stock photography, how easy it is to reproduce cheap imagery, to reproduce stock music. Digital media just made that much easier. And so the act of creation was less important because you could just like copy stuff. The social media was another thing. So brands convinced themselves that people wanted to interact with them the same way they interact with their friends, which I don't think they do. I think that's been proven out. But what that did was it also gave brands and marketers access to, millions of people instantly. And then the last thing is the smartphone, these things. So these things to me are the key to the whole thing. I think of the current media ecosystem like a big Jenga puzzle, and smartphones are sitting right in the middle of them. You pull those out, I think the whole thing collapses. I know people can do some of this stuff on their desktop, but the smartphone is what supercharged all this stuff, right? Because right now, I think the average adult spends 5 hours a day on their smartphone. In 1980, the average adult spent about 5 hours a day on broadcast television. So that is the indispensable piece of hardware for the whole thing. And if you're optimizing creative on a screen that big, it creates all kinds of problems. If you're optimizing creative for a media that's constantly scrolling, it puts pressure again in another way. So I think all of that combined with the broad shift from fame and persuasion to targeting has led us to a place where we're making a lot of stuff that we're not proud of.
And an angle I'll take on this, John, is my background is starting as a radio host, move into social media manager in the 2010s. A lot of us made that transition.
Yeah.
I talk about social media in 2014. It was all organic, was all throwing darts at the wall. And I always have this running joke that it was a huge moment when I got invited to the marketing room because it was not a given that the social media person was allowed in to do like real marketing discussion.
Yeah.
And then at some point, we look at social now, we look at multi-billions and billions and billions of dollars industry where, we went from priority like F to like priority B or A, depending on the company. So it's a big change and in the whole paid sphere and everything. So I've seen it in my career actually almost suck the life out of my creativity. There's times where I was doing better creative work with absolutely no budget because it was just go out there, tell a story, and elevate a brand. And
Yeah.
then once the money came into play, we got a lot more scared. So I'm curious as you look at that, like keeping what I call an organic flair towards your creative or that appeal that it's not too like crafted, not too zombified. How do we take some of the studies maybe of what you've done in the past, I've done in the past, we all know that we have in ourselves to do, and bring it out in like a corporate agency setting? Like how does it get that, how do we get that energy back going again?
I mean, I think the bigger problem is the algorithms. I was with you in 2014. I was at 2013 to 2015. I was at Huge, and we were social AOR for big brands, Pizza Hut, Dick's Sporting Goods, a bunch of them. And we were doing content calendars back then. Remember, we used to do like, oh God, it was a tremendous amount of work. It was I don't know, 20 posts a month on Facebook, the same on Instagram. I don't know how many tweets, but you're talking about like 100. And we figured out, oh, wait a minute, people don't really need to hear from Dick's Sporting Goods. Like even hardcore Dick's Sporting Goods fans really don't need 5 Instagram posts a week. But what has changed is the algorithm. So, I what opened my eyes was I quit Facebook after 2016 and the Cambridge Analytica stuff and all that stuff. I just got disgusted. I deactivated my account and I didn't show up until I guess it was 4 or 5 years later, because I was doing some volunteer work and I needed to get on the platform. I was shocked at how different the experience was. In 2016, most of what I saw on Facebook were people I follow or brands I follow, followed by the occasional ad. The entire thing had flipped in 2021. Like it did not look like the same experience, and it was all algorithms. And
Mhm.
so I think, I mean, the word enshittification gets thrown around a lot, but that's what's happened to social, unfortunately. It's an algorithm driven um, environment now. And so organic is much harder because it's getting buried. Even if you follow someone, you may not see it. So I think they killed the goose. And I'm not optimistic about it. I'm taking the under on all the social channels. Right now, they're
Yeah.
still an important part of our business. People still there are still there. I just don't know anyone who is in love with the user experience on any of the channels right now. I don't.
We do this with our podcast. We try to get our videos out to see what the best reach might be. Like, for instance, TikTok is not a new platform, but tends to have the highest organic reach to a
Yeah.
video. But I always laugh internally because I say they all run the same playbook. It's a lot by the social network when Justin Timberlake's character is telling Mark Zuckerberg on there that you don't run ads yet. It has to be cool first before you start running ads. You have to have the users first. And I think that's what we see with a lot of the platforms. They
Yeah.
have like this like bubble and then it starts to skew less and less and less. And then it just takes the creative energy away
Yeah.
because like the agencies, they go for those burst clicks and burst conversions.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to go to Blue Sky. I haven't gone completely over there, but it's the way Twitter used to be. It's mostly if you see what you follow, you mute what you don't, but it's not algorithmic. And I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't think they're going to unring that bell. I really don't. Until then, there's still ways to use social channels in ways that build brands. I don't want to sound too doom and gloom. There are ways to do it. It's just harder than it was in 2014 because of you're fighting the algorithm. It's more pay to play, but it's not impossible. They've just made it harder.
Where's one place a marketer could start to try to break through, just given the environment?
On social or anywhere.
Uh, on social specifically.
I mean, it depends on who your audience is, right? I mean, Facebook has become basically a message board for old people. Um, So I don't know. Maybe you want to reach.
I'm stealing that. By the way, I'm going to use that in my next consultation.
It is. It is. It just depends on who your audience is. TikTok is very, very good for, I mean, if you're not on TikTok and you're trying to reach an audience under 30, I think you're probably missing the boat because yeah, it skews female, but it skews younger. Um, not that young though. What is the average age? I saw it the other day. The average TikTok viewer is like 42 or 41. Even that's not like
Yeah.
people think. So, people in marketing boardrooms think, oh, we'll reach the kids on TikTok, and the average is like 42. Millennials, the oldest millennials are pushing 50 now, and so like everybody's old. Um, but the thing about TikTok is it has properties unlike the other video channels. There's certain behaviors and memes, and there's a way that you have to show up there to be authentic. I think more than Instagram, more than Facebook, it punishes you if you don't follow the sort of the way that people expect you to show up. That was really noticeable I live in the New York City area, and Mamdani was brilliant at creating these TikTok videos. He just has the format down. He's 34, but that's what propelled his campaign. That's an indication to brands that you can do it. Like he came out of nowhere and he did it basically through TikTok. He did a lot of other smart things too. I'm not saying that it was only TikTok. But because he was able to master that format, he was able to build a very sizable organic following. So you can still do it. Now, unfortunately, the bad news about TikTok is the Ellisons are going to buy it. And so we saw what Elon Musk did to Twitter, now X. I don't think good things are going to happen to TikTok when that sale happens. I'd like to be wrong, but we'll see. It's an open question.
I love old school 2012 Twitter. Like when those videos where people are like they play the music and it's like if you could just go back. That's like me when I talk about Twitter. It's like if you could go back to like that era. I know they didn't make a dime, they weren't profitable, but for the end user, it was golden. But let's talk about big brands, teams you're consulting at Digitas right now, something Jess and I have felt in pockets. So I've been in seat at LinkedIn. Jess and I work on the same team. We consult brands, walk into marketing rooms, give them our pitch, and then we walk out. But when I first started in 2022, very performance, very demand gen, very much, yeah, brand, like that's not the talk right now. Each year as we move into 2026, I feel like the performance talk has gotten less and less, where I'm starting to see new CMOs be like, yeah, like we can't just do this clicks thing forever. The cost will only go up. We can't combat this forever. We have LLMs in play. We're going to have to like modify what we're doing there. So I'm hearing brand discussion come up more again, and that's been refreshing to me. Curious what you're hearing on your side. Are we starting to see brands almost want to unzombify themselves already, but they need that extra push because it's something at least I'm feeling generally, but I don't know if we're all the way there yet in this whole like performance marketing versus brand weird thing that goes on all the time.
Yeah, I do think people are figuring it out. There's two case studies in the book that I mention, and everybody should learn from their lessons. People haven't learned this lesson. I guess you have to touch the stove. But in 2019, Adidas, the CMO for Adidas got up, it's a while ago now, and he basically admitted they overinvested in performance marketing. I forgot what the percentage was, but they turned the dial way up on performance and way down on brand, and their sales tanked. And he came out and said, and the quote's in the book, I'm paraphrasing, we thought it was the digital ads that were driving demand, but in fact, it was the brand. Flash forward a couple of years, and Nike does exactly the same thing. Nike says, we don't need any more advertising. We don't need any more big campaigns. We don't need any more celebrity. We're just going to go D2C. And what happened? The brand tanked. sales tanked. They basically destroyed, and they've subsequently corrected. So I'm surprised that people have to touch the stove to realize this, but I think people are figuring it out. In the book, I make the comparison. A lot of digital ad units to me are akin to postcards, right? They're a reminder of the brand. They're not the brand. So every year, I'm a big fan of J. Crew. I love J. Crew. I shop there all the time. Every year they send me a postcard on my birthday, which is like a 20% coupon. And I use it. I go, they get more of my money. If I got a postcard from a men's clothier that I've never heard of, right in the trash. So I think that's how I think of and the whole performance versus brand debate to me is a little false because everything is brand. Every single thing that you put your logo on affects the brand. But as a shorthand, I know we're talking about certain ad units. What gives those meaning is what drives sales. It's not the little postcard sized ads themselves. It's what's behind them, right? So people are figuring out, wait a minute, we have to be very careful and tend to the stuff that's giving these ads meaning. We have to draw people in before something flies by their feed and that has meaning to them. Because otherwise, all you're doing is essentially papering people's windshields with a bunch of flyers. And you're selling to your own fans. Imagine if you had just one tree in an orchard and just kept picking that same tree. Well, eventually the tree's going to die. You need to plant more trees. So you're not just selling to your own, you're not just picking one tree, you're growing an audience and you're growing demand. And that's what brand does.
I'm really curious, given your music background, how does sound, music, how does it play in this ecosystem or telling your story, really highlighting the brand on social?
Yeah, music is unfortunately there's very similar to stock photography. I think a lot of brands fell into the habit of using stock music. Not all stock music is terrible, but it just, again, digital media enabled that. And so it's often a miss because you see a spot, a 15-second pre-roll, let's say, or an Instagram ad, and the music just falls flat. I had a boss at Warner Brothers who told me once, 70% of the impact of your spot is music. Now, at the time, I thought he was nuts. I'm still not sure about that ratio, but he was really onto something. It's hugely important. And the funny thing is, we're talking about the Super Bowl earlier. Brands are stuck in the same Spotify playlist. So I point out in the book, if you look at music used in Super Bowl ads over the last 10 years, most of the music falls between like 1968 and like 1990. And that's because there's no more shared mass music culture. There's a handful like Lady Gaga and Kendrick Lamar, and there's like a very small handful of like mass, music stars, but there's not a shared language anymore. I think music is actually a huge branding opportunity, and very few brands do it well. Apple does it well. They're very, very picky about their music. But when you see a spot and you hear something different, it forces you to look up, right? If you happen to be distracted. So I think that's one of the things that can unzombify brands is a really sharp music brief and a really consistent use of music in their advertising.
So, John, to close us out, because we could have brand discussion for the next 3 hours if you let us, but I'm going to close you with this because there has to be a marketer listening to this, whether young or old. It's like, hey, I would love to have my life marketing project to be a book of this sort. What advice would you give to someone now going through this process to get published, to write your book, to come up with these ideas, to put as much passion as you did into this project? Like, what's a starting point for someone that wants to do this down the road?
Yeah, I had been speaking to a publisher in London, and I went back and forth with them about 3 months, for around 3 months, and they really wanted me to write a different kind of book. They wanted 75 more pages. They wanted me to pull out a lot of the humor. They wanted sort of more of a dry business book. It was a business book publisher, and I ultimately decided I didn't want to write that book. And I had spoken to a few people in advertising and marketing who had published their own books. And based on what I wanted to do with the book, I just did it myself. The advice I would give is, as I found out, after you write the book is where the real work starts. You have to then produce the book. So as I said, I hired a freelance design. You have to find a great designer. You have to find an editor. You have to find a publicist. Um, and so that takes as much work as writing. But beyond that, beyond the producing of the book, the thing to spend the most time on is the outline. If you outline the chapters, that I think I spent 2 months on that, just getting the chapters right. Because once you have the argument down, once you have that, then the writing is fairly mechanical and quite enjoyable. If you just do 500 words a day, you'll have a book. But it's all the work that comes after is really the surprise. So if you're going to do it, watch out. That you're in for a heavy
You're for a
lift.
second job.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, John, this was so insightful on so many different lenses, and we're very appreciative of you taking the time to really break this down over the course of the years in your career leading up to this book. For those listening, again, titled Zombie Brands, you can search for it on Amazon, I believe, John, but also give John a connect too, because he'll be providing some of the intel that you've heard today and what you can expect to read. John Long, LinkedIn. And John, it has been a honor to have you today, and we look forward to both reading this and then also continuing our discussion down the line.
Jess and Andy, thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Problem? Thank you, John.
All right.
Thanks, John.
So, Jess, first takeaway that I have to write down before we get into the deep stuff is Facebook a message board for old people. I will be using that a lot going forward. That was fantastic.
Yes, and mine would be they're called survivalists. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm not up to date on my zombie culture. But when he was saying that when he was talking about like the what the book was all about, and we're thinking about the Super Bowl, and even when I'm seeing with the Olympic ads, I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
he's got this. This is very true. We are walking around like zombies
Yeah.
in this marketing environment and world. And it's really upsetting me.
Yeah, and I kind of laughed at it because the way he described it, I just feel like, give me your conversions. Please click here. Read my ebook. Like I can just imagine him walking around. And what I think so much, Jess, is we're feeling it now. We have this conversation from 5 years from now. It's going to be a very different conversation because the brands that continue to do that, they are not going to be indexed on the chat GPTs of the world. The ones that are building brand recognition, being sourced, like being written, talked about on LinkedIn, on Reddit, the ones and twos, those brands are going to super elevate. And when people search for things, I want to learn French. Duolingo is going to come up right away because they've been sourced all over the place. And I just think that you can get away with it a little bit right now being a zombie, but I think there's going to be a day it's going to be harder and harder because the brands that have unzombified themselves, they're going to be the ones that are really ready for what the new age of the internet is going to bring.
Totally. And I loved all of his takes. I mean, you're right. We could have a multi-hour episode just listening to John's hot take on
Yeah.
everything that is happening because
Yeah.
he was very contrarian in
Yeah.
many points, which again leads to a very strong point of view. But
Yeah.
I do love. I mean, he really is one of the first that we've heard that is like AI, not for idea generation, but what
Hmm.
I liked how you could technically use it as a constraint. So it's like if you're getting the tool to generate multiple ideas and
Yeah.
then looking at that and saying, okay, we are absolutely not going to use these. It's almost like a cross check. Like,
Yeah.
no, this because it's been done before, so we don't want to go in this direction. There could be something there to make those connections.
So the other thing that I liked, and I feel like, we work in tech, we work at LinkedIn, we work across digital social media. What big tech doesn't want to hear is the contrarian that, hey, social algorithms and social costs have gone to the point we have to rethink what we're doing. And I was so appreciative that John hit on that, not because I want that to happen for us. You and I, we're tasked more with like, hey, LinkedIn needs to be brand. We can't just do the lead gen game all the time. But he brings up a very reasonable point in why a lot of brands they do spend big dollars on Meta, LinkedIn, TikTok, but some of them also have hit the bubble where they're rethinking it. This is why we're rethinking if that's the medium for us. I love that he hit on that, not because I like it, but because we need to have those real discussions working in this industry and just not pretend that everything is the same as it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Totally. So maybe even though we're pretending like it's 2016 still, it's John's telling us it's really
Yeah.
not. We're in 2026, people.
Yeah, the algorithms never went back to 2016. If we wanted to take it back there, where there wasn't a whole lot of media spend, we could do all kinds of stuff. Just like if we had a time machine, did this podcast back in 2016, the organic algorithm would have favored us a lot more. But, hey, we don't have a hot tub time machine on hand for us.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, speaking of 2016, with the Olympics, there was a Pokemon commercial.
Hmm.
Pokemon, and it was played
Yeah.
during the Super Bowl as well. So I
Yeah.
thought of you because we were talking about in
Pokemon Go.
2016,
Yeah.
Pokemon,
Yep.
huge.
It's still a big brand. They don't do Pokemon Go anymore, but that was a big thing back then. I remember I had that was interesting because it had a huge resurgence in 2016. Like it came like back from the ashes. Yeah, good to see. No, this was really interesting. I would say in terms of our discussions as we talk about brand, I like that John hits it from such a creative thinker's lens, which I almost feel like a lot of marketers they're turning that off. They're trying to turn it off into this like practical lens. So I've really liked hearing it through his angles, music, broadcast, how all that comes into play. So it's very fascinating and one that I think I'm going to have to even think about more how we do some of these episodes and even come back next episode with even more thoughts on it.
Definitely. This is something that we need to get on the book club schedule,
Yes.
or we're
Do a
definitely going to
re-review.
read this and continue to reference.
Yep. So we'll close out there. Again, if you are looking for the book, Zombie Brands, How Brands Lost Their Humanity and How They Can Regain Their Appeal in the Age of AI, give it a search. Follow John on LinkedIn. Until next time, we'll continue our unzombifying of all the brands in the industry on the making of a marketer. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.